Welcome to selfdiscoverymedia.com, where the orchard of wisdom shows are at your fingertips. It ignites your soul, your heart, your spirit, your mind, and your body with illumination from people who have made the journey before you. They're here now to help you on your journey, on your path of self-discovery. We are funded by you, the audience, and the people we interview. If you wish to support us, please go to selfdiscoverymedia.com and press on our Fund Action button. Anything is appreciated. We'd like you to sit back and enjoy the shows. Here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Quantum Spirituality, right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my guest today is Lesley Mitchell Clarke. Hypnotherapy regression for ultra-terrestrial contact. Yes, it's a big mouthful there. We're going to be talking about UFOlogy, hypnotherapy, hypnotic regression, people who have had contact with people with the extraterrestrial, which more of us have than wish to admit. And we're going to be discussing how she uses these skilled, beautiful regression techniques with individuals who believe they've had this ultra-terrestrial contact or other experiences with high strangeness. What is ufology and this particular use of hypnotherapy and hypnotic and regression? How do we identify it? Well, we're going to be finding that all about today. Someone with, is it an experience with someone with mental illness? Could be so-called encounters be delusionals? Could they be just experienced, hypnotic experiences, sleep paralysis? We're going to discuss all of that today because this is really, truly fascinating. Are there hybrid children out there? Do we really have contact with ET? So much to learn, and it's a fascinating topic because really, if more of us admitted it, we would actually say we've either had contact or we've seen a UFO or we've had some experiences that we can't explain. But not many people want to talk about it because of the stigma to go with it. So welcome to the show, Lesley. Let's go into the twilight zone.
All right. Where's your little tinfoil chapeau? I've got
For a lot of people, this is just, too far out there. But for us to think we are the only people in the universe would be rather sad when you look at us as a species. We hope there is more intelligence in the universe.
Oh, goodness, yes.
And like I call Earth the kindergarten, where we come to learn. And there is so much more out there. And I really do believe that the presence is going to be more and more made known because they need to save us.
They do. And, we have, and first of all, thank you so much for having me on the program. It's just a delight to chat with you, and especially to be able to maybe, demystify some of these things that we're going to talk about, and to really bring a kind of a common sense approach to all of this, because really we're talking about a world, our world, that has global amnesia. We have forgotten our origins. We have forgotten our interactions with each other. We have forgotten how civilizations came and went during the great physical cataclysms that the earth has endured, whether it was meteors or ice ages or biblical floods, whatever it may be. We have rebooted a few times. Yes. And so when people say, are there hybrids walking about? The first thing that I have to say is we are the hybrids.
Yes,
we are the hybrids, and I'm very interested and involved in ancient archaeology, and I am of the belief system that we are the result of either some panspermia or some very directed efforts to upgrade us from whatever the most evolved indigenous life form was 650,000 years ago, 650 million years ago, I'm sorry. Yeah. And so, we may be talking about, our origins are, we have reptilian DNA in our brains, our origins. I'm not anti-evolution, but I think that probably the highest form of natural evolution in our world would be something like, the Denisovans or the Neanderthals. They were just coming into awareness. And in fact, Zechariah Sitchin, in his translations of the ancient Sumerian scrolls, says that, Enki, who was just a man, they had decided, he and his people had decided to begin this breeding program for labor, essentially. And
Yes.
what he did is he looked around and he found a group of proto-humans that displayed compassion. And that's what drew him to those particular beings, whether they were Denisovans or any of these other new, extremely ancient proto-humans that we're discovering. So suddenly we have the leap to Homo sapiens sapien, and so it's very interesting to me that in our great amnesia, we are only just beginning to acknowledge maybe who we are, and that it's possible that we have genetic material that is in the process of turning on, or that we haven't utilized as yet. So you're absolutely right. When you talk about, people are telling me, clients and colleagues alike, that things feel as if they're speeding up. And I think, although time isn't really real,
Right.
it's an agreement.
It's a human concept, yes.
It's not linear. It's maybe more like an onion, but I think certain timelines do become invigorated, because after all, as you pointed out so astutely, this is the cruel school. We are here to learn and to engage, and also to help others.
Yes.
So there are many light workers here with tremendous amounts of compassion, who are having experiences on a daily basis and have been experiencing things since they came into this world as part of a agreement. I believe it's a universe of free will. And again, this plays into probably, my work and others' work with not only past life regression, but interlife regression, which determines the course of what we call the present life. And I maintain that those of us that are doing what we are doing, including very much yourself, disseminating information, we're the midwives of disclosure.
Yes.
And that's the title of not my next book, but the one after that, Midwives of Disclosure. And so we're all here. We're here by choice. We're here to help uplift. And I think, many people ask me, forgive me for blabbing on, but many people ask me, if there is all this contact going on, what are the ETs looking for? Why is it happening? What do they want? If they're superior, they could come in and just kick us off, kick us to the curb. Well, I think that what is happening, and as the veils become thinner, as we begin to evolve, as everything begins to vibrate at a higher rate, it is now much more possible for communication. I think it's a lot of effort for some beings to, use what I like a step down transformer, to slow their.
Yeah,
I think it's a big deal. It's not easy. And so if beings are going to communicate with earthlings, we need to rise up, or the next best thing would be to work with human beings who genetically are already awakened. And are already capable of telepathy and such. And there are many light workers.
Yeah. I have to
ridiculous.
Jump in. I have to
jump.
I do.
Jump
I do.
in, jump.
So much I want to say.
Jump away.
Agree. About 5 years ago, I was given the saying from the universe is going to shake us up, to wake us up, for us to step up, to change it up, and grow up vibrationally, but also grow up as a human race. And we're still very much in a shake-up stage, but many people have stepped up and changing it up, right? It is happening. But the beautiful thing is, as you said, they can't really connect with us and really help us until we're at a higher vibration. And that's the invitation right now, for us to rise up. And what is the rising up in? Compassion, right? Kindness, caring, collaboration, that cohesiveness. It is love, the vibration of love. And when we're up at that frequency, now they can actually communicate and guide us. But why we're at a lower vibration, they just can't reach us there. So it's up to us to rise up. And I think that certainly since 2012, we've been seeing every year the volume turned up on us. More and more and more every year. And, we get these pandemics, we get these wars, and this is kind of the human condition where the humans, I think we're seeing so much violence and so much outrage right now from the people who know the change is coming. They can feel it, but they're unwilling to rise up because
they're scared.
They're scared shitless.
They're scared.
They really are
shitless.
Yes.
They are.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
And so, it is a choice that we all have to make. That's what we're here for. I know I came here many eons ago. I know I was a blue species, and I came here to ignite the hearts and souls of humanity, to connect to the universe. I've done that in every lifetime. I've been persecuted, torn, quartered, you named it, been through the whole works.
Me too.
Right, and it hurts. Yes. But this lifetime was for me to come back into my empowerment. Because this lifetime, at this time, and we are at a beautiful age of that growing up, of that rising up. And this is where I feel that the extraterrestrial inside of us is rising up, and where we will actually see the actual beings bring themselves forward and be accepted. And the change is happening. Resistance is futile. But when people don't want to change because they're afraid of it, they're the ones that will make the most noise, will do the most drastic things. But you can't stop this. This energy is already in gear. You can't stop this. It's on its way. It's get on the train or get left behind.
Yeah, absolutely true. And there are, in fact, more enlightened people on the planet than unenlightened.
Yes.
We crossed a threshold, a balance point during one of the great, planetary configurations that happened. There are more of us that are in tune than not.
Yeah.
And, I've heard, and again, from many of my my clients are the ones who are so in tune and plugged in, and they come through with the information. I'm just like a guide or something. But what I am hearing are a couple things. First of all, that we're dealing with many species, most of which are benevolent.
Yeah.
Like any group of intelligent life like we have just on this planet, there are always going to be some unenlightened disgruntled beings. And in fact, I think that these some of the things that have happened politically and such have been a great help. And I'm going to speak as an American for a moment. I'm from New York City, and I'm not, I don't even want to talk about the T word, the meat puppet that was violating the Oval Office. But
Mr. Narcissism.
Yeah, indeed. But what that did is, as an American, it showed me where the racists are congregating, their lack of education, lack of nutrition, even. Yes. Because if you've ever been to the American South, you would be very startled maybe by the way that people eat there.
Yeah.
It's quite alien from how I was raised by my Irish grandparents mostly. Right. It's quite alien, and they eat massive amounts of carbs and sugar and God knows what else. So we have these people desperately need help and need to be enlightened, and we know we have to go in and begin educating people without spewing hatred, because now we know. I would have never, if you had asked me before the whole Trump, if you had asked me, are there still active, Klans people and all this stuff going, I would have said, no, that's, there you go. And it is a universe of free will, and it is a planet of free will, as you said. And I have also heard from a number of clients channeling information that planet Earth is in fact unique in the scope of civilizations in our corner of the galaxy, in that we do have such an incredibly diverse collection of souls.
Yes.
You know, I mean, we have sociopaths and murderers and the worst possible felons, and we have the Dalai Lama and Martin
Yes.
Luther King, and
Yes.
I mean, we have an incredible
Yeah. A hodgepodge. Yeah.
hodgepodge. So
Yes.
it's fascinating, I think. And you know, but
But it's
one
about
of
the
the
balance, isn't it?
it is about the
Yes. It's
balance.
it's like what you feed will grow. And you know,
Yeah,
and I think for many people, you know, there's two things: there's love and there's fear. You know,
yeah,
love is a higher vibration where you do not want to do harm to anyone else because it will harm you to do so.
yes.
And fear is something I don't know, I don't understand, so therefore I'm going to hate it or take violence
Hmm.
out on it.
Hmm.
Or you know, I'm going to get you before you get me because I don't understand. I'm in the fear
Yeah.
zone. It comes down to a choice, is that we're always afraid of something until we understand it. If you don't make an effort to try and understand, to get the knowledge, then you're
Hmm.
always going to be in a state of fear.
Yes.
And all you need is someone to push that fear button, and hysteria, a tornado, a
Oh yeah.
hurricane happens. And
Yeah.
then people have forgotten what the original fear was.
Oh yeah. Once you start leaching adrenalines and corticosteroids into your system, you're off to the races.
Yes.
Reactivity has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're right. Fear, in fact, you know, you couldn't have put it more succinctly than, you know, what I do, how I see myself is a person who does everything they can do to eliminate fear
Mm-hmm.
so that experiences can be processed and integrated into the whole person.
Yes.
Fear is how we stay in stasis.
Yeah.
And now, and I believe with every cell of my being that, you know, the people that are reacting in racist ways and all of these
Mm.
things, this is all fear-based material. And, you know, really poor people were made to feel that their little piece of whatever was going to be taken from them.
Right.
And
Yes.
they came to believe that,
Yeah.
and they were afraid. I'm afraid, so you look different than I am.
Yeah.
You must be responsible. You know,
That's right.
it's just the old thing. Yeah.
Yes, it's an old program that really needs to be deleted.
Hmm.
Right. And how can you insert a new program with an old program that's so utterly entrenched? So there
Indeed.
it comes down to each and every one of us as part of our life's journey is to be responsible to look at that old program and going, is it serving me?
Yeah.
Is this living in this state of fear constantly serve me? Can I be creative? Can I evolve? Can I step into and trust love?
Hmm.
It's no to all of that if you're in that old programming. So it's somewhere along the line, people have to step out of that programming and say, no, I cannot be here anymore. What
Hmm.
fear is it? It's societal fear that's been
Hmm.
imposed upon me. It's
Hmm.
ancestral fear. It's past lives fear. It's
Hmm.
DNA fear. And at some point, you've got to go, I cannot. I'm saturated. I
Yeah.
cannot take this fear zone anymore, because why is it even worth living if I'm living constantly in a state of fear?
Oh
So
yeah.
we have to be willing, and that's part of our beautiful journey to discover how strong, how courageous, how many abilities we have, is to go through the process of deprogramming and
So
allowing
true.
openly and willingly to be what is, the
Yes.
knowingness to come through us. But the knowingness can't come through a closed heart, and it cannot come from a fear-based body.
Right. You are absolutely right. And this aspect of fear that we're discussing right now, I must say, you know, of course, not only do I do this regression work, but I do a tremendous amount of what you would call just mainstream hypnosis, helping
Mm-hmm.
people with various problems. And I have never seen more fear-based
Yeah.
behavior in this past couple of years. And of course, much of this is, you know, the world situation,
Yeah.
but people are coming out on the other side, and
Right.
they're kicking anxieties to the curb that they may
Yes.
have had since they were, you know, 10 years old. So
Mm.
we can, once we achieve awareness, we
Mm.
can shut down, we can disrupt any old
Yes.
programs, and we can replace them with new, fresh neural pathways. And that's how it works. In hypnosis, we always say you can't take something out without putting something else in.
Right.
So that's really, again, we're really talking about balance. And one thing I did also want to mention is taking responsibility. When we, especially when, now, again, in my stupidity, when people were talking about, we must use respectful terminology. Yes, I agree. I've never offended anyone, blah, blah, blah. So then I really started to re-examine things that I may have done, which showed either my white privilege or racial bias. And I remembered that years ago in summer stock as an actress, we did a production of You Can't Take It With You, which is an old Moss Hart play at George Kaufman and Moss Hart. And there are two servants in the household named Donald and Reba. And we were in the middle of the United States, and there wasn't a Black person for miles, and two actors played those parts in blackface.
Oh, yes.
And I never thought anything of it.
Nope.
Never thought.
Nope.
I never thought. Well, why we were so
Remember
close to Chicago, Minneapolis, we could have brought in two actors.
Yes.
And I just said, oh, okay, we don't have a Black actor. We're just gonna do that. Well, next, let's get some eye tapes. If we do, Flower Drum Song, that kind of thing went on constantly. Right. And then I also, recalled that later, and this is my white privilege, not. I was a very busy singer in Los Angeles and worked mostly in nice hotels near the airport. And it was not written, but we knew that they would not hire Black musicians. And this is in the 80s.
Right.
This is in the 1980s. And so I would go in there with my all white band, and we would do all funky dance material that was from Black artists. And right. I just thought, well, that's just the way it is,
Yeah.
So we have to, we have to, those are just two examples.
But that comes into the societal conditioning. Once you know that's wrong, right, now you can change it. But if it's something we've grown up with, until somebody says, I'm offended, or this is crass, or this is just not acceptable, have you thought about it from this point of view? We don't, because society accepted it, we accepted it.
Yes.
Right, because what are we doing, especially when we're young? We're trying to fit in.
Yes.
We're trying to be a part of society. I mean, I don't know about you, but I was already a freak enough.
Oh.
It's trying to be what society wanted to me, the best I could be, which didn't work at all. I always seem to let everybody down because I couldn't be what they wanted to be. But we do try and do what the norm is to fit in without looking at the norm. At some point we step back and we look at that norm and go, hey, why am I so busy trying to fit into that when it's a crock of lies, or it shouldn't be the norm in the first place?
Then we just go to the theater department. When all else fails. Yeah. Oh man, but you're completely right. Now I think that with the increase of compassion, because when we are sensitive to people's feelings, whether it's racial or religious, or that increased sensitivity to their feelings is simply a side effect of evolved compassion.
Yes.
So being sensitive, and you can go right into somebody's feelings if you want, and feel how they feel. We have that ability. We could all be empaths, and we all are, to a certain, whether people deny it or not. Every human on this planet has empathic and telepathic ability.
Whether it's just switched on or not.
Whether it's switched on, and of course, some people, it's like anything else, like musical ability. Yeah. Everybody can pretty much carry a tune, but how many people, become Tchaikovsky?
Yes.
So there are varying skill levels, but everybody can start from where they start, and just by reducing anxiety.
Yeah.
You are able to get peace, and then think, and then maybe meditate, and then maybe connect and heal and sleep better and eat better. And I'm not pushing any dietary regime, but I think that it's all part of the same thing. We have to love and respect ourselves by feeding ourselves the best food that we can, that's nutritious and healthy. That's all.
Vegetables, folks, vegetables. They're not out to get you. They're delicious.
No, they're so good.
Yes. I think, as we said, the tide is turning. and we couldn't stop it if we wanted to. It's
No.
already, the momentum is going. I've been doing this near on 10 years now. And, you know, even 10 years ago when we would discuss this, it would still be something that was a bit out there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and now, you know, it is a forefront, and more people are discussing. And I think that's actually the gift of podcasting,
Oh,
because, you know, we can speak our truth. We haven't got, you
yes.
know, somebody at the top of the media company saying, no, 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 you can't say
Not
that, you know.
really. Not
You know, as
really.
long as it's within respect,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, we can speak our truth, and it's up to people whether they're going to accept it or not, you know, and whether they believe it or not. Even just hearing it as a seed being planted. Well, what
Mm-hmm.
if? What if there is
Indeed.
something to this? What if I start seeing people differently? You know, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I loved the Men in Black. You know, the
Yeah.
first movie when they said, "Oh yeah, that one's from, you know, and that one's from that world," and it was just, it just kind of, although it was funny, you suddenly started looking at people differently and thinking, "Okay,
Yeah.
which world are you from?"
I know, you know, and it must be like that. I've heard many people, different people, describe to me a real kind of Gene
Yeah.
Roddenberry-esque United Federation of Planets.
Yes.
It's not
Yes.
called that, but there is an
Yes.
association of evolved beings that
Mm-hmm.
work together. In fact, I don't know if you recall, there's a lovely gentleman, he passed away not very long ago, named Paul Hellyer. And he was, for some long time, the Minister of Defense in Canada. And he was also a Premier of Ontario. So he was involved in Canadian politics for decades and decades. And as Minister of Defense, of course, he was in on, I don't know if the U.S. I don't know if Canada is quite as deeply enmeshed in the secrecy and all of the as the U.S. is, but I suspect it's similar.
Mm-hmm.
But he told me that, and this, let's see, how long ago was this now before he passed? I'm going to think he's been gone about 3 years, maybe. And he said, to his knowledge, from what he knew right then, the Canadian government was engaging with and had agreements with and diplomatic, relations with at least 80 different species.
Mm-hmm.
So we are talking about, the beings that I hear about
Yes.
in, all of these many sessions, and many are quite diverse. Now, very commonly, we are engaging with Pleiadians and Lyrians and Arcturians, and these beings sometimes look so much like us that there's
Mm.
just no distinguishing, and they absolutely can come here and live here if they want.
Right.
They're not so much about, they're almost in the same kind of density that we are. They're just a
Mm.
little bit ahead, right? And so there's a lot of that. We now the I hear about insectoids who, contrary to the rather disturbing idea to me and to many people of large human 8 foot tall insectoids, but these beings are like pure love,
Mm.
which is why, and they are considered the geneticists of the universe. And so often in childhood encounters, the insectoid beings are involved because they are so skilled and because they exude this compassion, but they always disguise themselves. They don't want the kids to see them
Right.
because they understand how, disturbing that would be. There are
Or
many,
comforting.
or comforting, but so there's that. there are
Yeah.
there are all kinds of reptilians.
Mm.
Most of them are good, and there are some real nasty ones, but they're more or less confined to off-world pods.
Mm.
They're not really involved actively in, they're not really interested in communicating with us. Why would they be? But some reptilians are very humanoid like and are very involved. So
Mm.
again, you can't judge
No.
anyone really by their looks. Now, it's most of the time, the beings that people encounter and have experiences with, often lifelong experiences with, are in the humanoid ballpark. You know what I mean? Two
Yes.
legs, two
Yes.
arms, it's, and relatable.
Yes.
Now, there are farther out beings.
Yes.
There are aquatic beings. Uh, there are beings that are so highly evolved that they don't
Translucent.
really have
Mm.
physical bodies.
Yeah.
So there's all kinds of life. The universe is teeming,
Yes.
teeming with life. And
As
they're
I say, we're the
just,
kindergarten, you know?
we are, and they're
We're here to
waiting.
learn. Yes, they're waiting for us to get up to that level where we would be embracing of them,
I know.
right? You know, if you're down at that lower vibration, you know, and you see an alien, you're going to immediately get out the guns and start shooting. When you're
Yeah,
up a higher level, it is like, I've been waiting for you.
indeed,
Right? So
indeed.
it's
And
just where is our vibration?
there's a lot of that. And one of the joyous things about helping people recover their memories is what they don't know is scaring them.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Oh, yes.
Once the truth is revealed, and in fact the reality that these people are very special and have been in fact chosen or made their own choice to be there.
Yes.
And or both. So
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing when those memories are recovered, and they are in fact, you know, benign and uplifting. And many experiencers I have found are almost leading multiple lives. Now here we get into more of an interdimensional kind of quantum thing, because I don't know how it's really possible energetically for these people to do what they do, but they do.
Yes.
They go to sleep, and if you want to use the term astral projection, but it seems like it's more of a psychophysical body that comes out. I'm not exactly sure, but some aspect of themselves is able to be just projected by thought,
yes,
usually to a craft or a large craft where they have some kind of task, where they're working on some kind of amazing thing. And they're just walking about with people who I assume are oscillating at that lighter vibration. So everybody sees kind of the same. So one must wonder how many of these beings are in fact in a sleep stage in their dense bodies and are projecting. Some of them are. Some of them, I believe, are using what we would call holographic technology.
Right. Yeah.
So we see, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And now inevitably, and I know that some of your at least some of your viewers and followers are going to ask about negative experiences.
Before we go there, though, I want to address the other. You know, there was a beautiful movie, Doctor Strange, and there's a wonderful scene there where she pushes him out of his body and says, "What do you think you are? Just matter?" Right? And it's, you know, finally, it's been addressed. You know, it's been addressed, and that you can go anywhere and do anything outside of the matter. Now, you know, that is how I've always felt kind of weighed down by my matter, and I've always felt that it's very, very hard to be a human. The realization of what I was, I always knew I was different, but the realization of what I was only came to me around about 12, 15 years ago. And a few past life experiences started coming. I know I was always here, as I say, to ignite the heart and souls. That's what I elected to stay behind and do. And it's also taken its toll on me, obviously, because of the persecution of what humans do to each other. But the actual, as you said, the traveling, leaving the body, you know, I very often just go up into space where you know everything, can know nothing, feel everything, and feel nothing. It's just, you know, just a wonderful feeling that there aren't any words to enjoy, but also the dimensional travel. And I was a very sickly child growing up. So a lot of mine was left alone a great deal for many hours and hours and weeks on end. And so I used to just leave. I either played with dead people or went off into other dimensions. And then I've always done that. And it's, for me, it was always, well, why can't other people do that? Why do they not? You know, why am I odd? Why is nobody talking about this? And as you said, the fear of it, you know, that was there. Wasn't enough knowledge, wasn't enough people speaking about it. But as the volume has been turned up more and more and more, people like myself and those a great deal more advanced, they have ascended from, you know, from their restraints, and now have stepped into their beautiful work of what they're here to do. And the essence and the vibration of them is received before even they enter the room. And the work that they're doing is so illuminating. that it is penetrating those that are all looking and seeking for something. And so they're waking up, people are waking up, they don't know what they're waking up to. Right? They just know that this feeling is different, or that suddenly they're seeing things differently, or they're feeling things differently. And it's beautiful to see, and that's what we need to nurture and get to that other side. And you're going back to what you were saying about, taking earthlings as slaves, quite essentially. There was a wonderful person I had who Conduit wrote a book about Atlantis and how Atlantis fell. And how actually they did use the humans for that. And then there was a human revolution and Atlantis fell because of it. And, you look at the elves and the Lord of the Rings, it's the time of man, but look what man has done. Man has royally screwed it up.
I know.
And going to your point now of the bad experiences, I've been body snatched, where an entity came in. It took 4 people to hold me down as I'm riling on the bed. But I was dabbling at that time without protection. I was in and out of different worlds, and I didn't have the protection, and I was absorbed. But that was somebody who'd passed over, managed to get rid of it, obviously. But if we're not open to these kind of experiences, we don't have to understand it all. We just have to admit that we've had an experience, or we're open to the good experience. And I know a lot of people, well, I don't want to get body snatched. I don't want to go there. No, if you're at a higher vibration, I got body snatched because I was dabbling without protection.
Yeah.
Right. I was going into too many worlds, and I was also quite sick at that time too. And so my vibration was too low, which made me a victim. If you raise that vibration, then you're going to meet the good ones. Right?
Yes. Well, there are opportunistic entities. There are, and I'm kind of one of these people, as above, so below. I think that from what I have heard, what we refer to as heaven, or where we go when we, leave this dense physical body, that realm is accessible to evolved beings. They can go in and out, and they can sit on councils, which everybody has to go through. And in fact, when I do, an interlife regression or past life regression, and people go to their councils, very often the unique people that I work with have councils that have beings on them that are not quite human.
Yeah.
In that respect, it's not unusual to see a long-skulled being or a blue being. They have copper, copper blood, based blood. They're blue. It's not unusual to see, and they're not dead. They have living energy.
Yes.
They simply are able to exist in that realm where we all exist, where we live, our home, when we shed this dense manifestation.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah, I agree. We're hungry for it. I mean, look at all the space movies, right? I mean, why was Star Trek so popular? It's because of the message. Why was Star Wars, may the force be with you, right? The energy force be with you. The force of truth and love and caring be with you. And we're fascinated with all of these space movies because we are looking for these answers. Of course, what it always is that we have to turn on an alien, right, and obliterate it, because let's face it, human societies, let's shoot first and ask questions later. And we've got to get over that, because that is your own insecurity, that is your own fear that you are projecting. And if we rise up to that higher frequency, we are protected, and we're never alone. That's the thing. We are never alone. Those forces of energy are always with you, and the higher you go, the more there are.
And you can easily telepathically call out someone I trusted very much who's passed, told me, just go into a relaxed state and say, is there any loving being, protector, any loving being that would like to communicate with me now? And always something interesting will happen, and not negative in any way. I think that the really traumatic experiences that many women and men had at the hands of the Zeta Reticuli, a specific gray alien.
Right, the
Um,
probing and everything.
yeah, the
Yes.
probing, it was, that again is partially our responsibility, because it goes back to what we call the Truman Agreement. The post-Roswell Truman Agreement. There was a crash, yes, but there were really 3 crashes. There were survivors, there were negotiations, there was a détente, and there was an agreement where these Zeta Reticulites agreed to give us, the us being the US, I don't know, at that point, I don't think they were speaking for the world government. I think it's different now, but then it was the US. And the ET said, well, we're having all these fertility problems. We'll give you this stuff if we can just take from a very few people,
Yes.
genetic material. And the agreement was made, and the way all this was really hidden, and this is the very beginning of what we now call the secret space program, the very ground zero. This technology came, and so to hide it, it was given to a diverse group of huge mega corporations, like you guys at the Hughes Skunk Works, you take the fiber optics. You guys over here, you take the integrated circuits. You guys over here, you take Velcro.
Right. Yes. Not giving
So
anyone power, right?
no,
Yeah.
and then they created, the U.S. Army created what they called the Department of Foreign Technology, and yes, it was foreign, and that was, if any of your listeners are interested in that particular period of time, it's not my area of interest, but if you are, there's a wonderful book called The Day After Roswell by Philip Corso, who's now passed away, and Colonel Philip Corso, I think, and he was in fact the head of the Department of Foreign Technology. So it's very detailed in how we kind of came to be where we are now, and why I think the ETs have just given up on straight ahead. Disclosure is not going to be landing on the White House lawn. They tried that. It didn't work. It's been tried. So it's a grassroots movement. And as you mentioned earlier, the freedom of the internet and being able to have all this programming for us all, and for us to be able to interact with each other, for me being able to treat an experiencer from Tokyo. I mean, it's in Tokyo.
Yes.
The technology has made everything different, and this is what the big difference is, and why things are actually going to happen. There are no government people that the ETs really care about. It's all grassroots.
Yes. You totally hit there. It's I say over and over again, don't wait for government to change. It will be the individual people that will form their own alliances to change. I have somebody else on this week that the same week as you, which is Mark Ferrantino, and he's written a book, The Master of Reality, and he's talking a great deal about science, but he's talking also about the anti-gravity technology, but UFO and spirituality and all of that. And this is why I say it's one of those lovely weeks.
Fantastic. Well, you'll be in the zone.
Yes.
And by the way, I think a lot of what we see, not all of it, but a big chunk of what we see is our own reverse engineered technology that we're taking out for a ride and training and doing this. And the government definitely is being less, if that's the case, the government is being less cautious about hiding stuff. And with
I don't think they can anymore.
They can't. And with the advent of cell phones,
I'm going to use Tesla, who I have great admiration for. Mark was very much an Einstein guy, and he likes the Einstein. But I look at Tesla and his technology that we really have only just stepped into now. And, with all the rejection that Tesla had, he ended up with like a solar beam that was a healing modium, and the thing about Tesla, and this is where the knowingness comes in, is knowing what you need to know when you need to know it. The soul wisdom, speaking through a heart resonance, going to the spirit interaction, and the mind knowing what it needs to know when it needs to know it. But the thing about Tesla is they had the intellect to understand.
Yes.
Right? And that's the thing, is that certain people, and we see it now through history, and we think, they're absolutely brainy and brilliant. No, they're channelers. They have been open to receive the information, but they have enough intellect to know what to do with that information. And we look at the technologies we have today, technologies that we don't even know about yet. We can do 3D limbs. You know, we are so advanced in our technology, yet the humanity's got to catch up. Right?
Yes, yes. That's probably is a symptom of that messing with our timeline.
Yes,
of introducing those things maybe before, you know, but Tesla certainly was a man of the, I mean, I think he was born in the 19th century, at the end of the 19th century, but I think he was one of those advanced ETs who decided to incarnate on our planet.
I agree.
And you know, even you know, the Philadelphia experiment obviously was really all about time travel, because Tesla knew, everybody else speculated, but Tesla knew that gravity was part of space-time. And he had a much better grip on that, and what they were doing with, you know, on the ship, the Philadelphia, so they had all of these huge Tesla coils. And I think the, you know, the militarized purpose was to create an invisibility shield, but in fact they messed with space-time and created some type of a little rupture, and the rest is, you know, I don't have to tell you about the rest, but Tesla was, again, his stuff was taken and misused, and it's still a mystery about where exactly his papers are. I know that I saw a very excellent program actually specifically about Tesla, and the investigators actually went over to the former Yugoslavia, and went to the institute that claims to have his material. And they were really cagey, and they wouldn't admit to anything, and it was very strange. So I think his stuff, I think somehow the Serbian government maybe was able to get his
out of American hands.
I think so. I think that's
we see so many technologies that are absolutely brilliant that can help humanity move forward, but they're shelved, they're bought and shelved. Because the dominance of, I mean, oil is, you know, oil should be so completely passé now, and
that has to go.
It has to go, and there is this resistance and fighting against it, and it's like, you know, I mean, right now is a perfect thing. I did a comment on this the other day. Governments wake up. If ever there was a perfect time to start putting money behind the eco-friendly technologies, it is now. The world would be with you, because we're seeing yet another war with oil at its base.
I know. It's and we actually, you know, free energy actually exists. The great pyramids of Giza were free energy, earth energy generators, if you will.
No. You've heard of the Bosnian pyramid?
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go.
I've interviewed Sam twice.
Sam is the best. And I mean, I'm telling you, if I could go over there with a little spade, you can go over there and train up for 2 weeks and actually join the dig. And one of these days, I'm going to do it.
And for people who don't know what we're talking about, please just, you know, put in Bosnian pyramids and selfdiscoverymedia.com. I've interviewed him twice. He's an absolute gem. But the incredible thing that I find fascinating was not only, you know, the healing energies and everything else that was there that they have found in the Bosnian, but actually to prove what the pyramids were for. And that there's the big ones are just strategically placed around the world. There's about 1,000 of them altogether. They were actually designed as energy sources to actually power up the world. Right. And then there became some infighting with other species, and that we're not quite clear of what the fighting was over, maybe over Earth in itself altogether. But they were designed there to just tap into the universal energy and power this world.
That's what it is. And we had a free energy grid at one time, and we could again, and that's one of the things that Tesla was experimenting with, as we all know.
And wireless, he was shut down, and you know, he
was so that's what has to happen first. And I mean, let's face it, we didn't leave the Stone Age because we ran out of stone. You know, we didn't, you know, and we don't have to get down to our last drop of fossil fuels. I mean, here in Canada, I got to tell you, we've got some real Philistines out in the West Side, you know, who want to, they are absolutely, you know, pro oil and
Of
pro
course.
mining and
Yep.
fracking and all the rest. But
Yep.
and here again, we have fear. People are afraid of losing jobs. I'm
Yes.
telling you that developing new technologies,
Yeah.
there would be more wonderful
More jobs. Yeah.
jobs
And better jobs.
anybody could
Yeah.
imagine.
There was a couple of guys, I can't remember the name. I remember watching this documentary a few years ago, and they went to the government about closing coal mines and then changing the technology over, which would actually be safer for the miners, re-educating them, those that were close to retirement, retiring them on, you know, full pension. They had closed down 9 coal mines. And the towns were thriving because they introduced new energies, they introduced new technology. There were less deaths, less ill health, everything else, because they're not going down into the mines. And they said, if we wait for government, it's never going to be done. They came together. And this is what we were talking about before. We're going to see the people with the money and with the innovation come together, like we saw with the virus, whether you believe in the vaccine or not.
No, I did. I'm triple vaxxed. I used to be a psych nurse. I have a medical background. I know how vaccines work.
For all of the countries to come together, with their information on the vaccines and work together to produce a vaccine for us, it showed that we can work together, and we're meant to work together.
Yes, we are. And even now, in working for the ending of conflict and working for humanitarian aid, the world has come together.
Yes.
Incredibly.
Yes.
There's one despot, we must remember that, and his people that are afraid of him. There's one sociopath.
Yeah.
And the Russian people are brave, and I mean, I've seen pictures of them knowing they were going to be arrested, out there standing standing in silence. Yes, knowing that was going to happen, but they had to. So that I think there are remarkable things going on. We just really have to keep our glass half full.
This is the standing up, the shake up, stand up. This is the standing up. Things have to change, and we're doing it en masse. Black Lives Matter, the Me Too movement, all of these type of things. They're standing up.
Gender equality, Sarah, because in my feeling, I have a feeling you might agree with me, but I think that a lot of the turmoil that we have experienced on planet Earth has been because of a completely wrong imbalance of power between men and women. We have been, as women, we have been the slaves of the earth.
Totally persecuted.
How in God's name, I mean, how could this have happened? I don't know, but we have an imbalance of positive, and we have an imbalance of male and female energy.
Yin and yang.
Yin and yang, thank you. And until we sort out the feng shui of our world, and it's starting to happen, and I almost, you know, I almost wonder, I should say, I have a transgendered daughter who I adore, and I almost wonder now if transgendered people aren't coming into the world at this time to teach us that the soul is without gender.
Exactly.
And we can express ourselves in any physical body that we wish to.
Well, like non-binary, right? Is that, you know, I am of no, don't, in other words, the message is this: don't look at me as a sexual being. Look at me as a being. I am not my package. I'm not my containment here. You know, for me, people ask me, how do I choose people to interview? And it's heart and soul. Yes, the topic may be interesting, but do I feel the heart and soul? Because if I can't feel the heart and soul, then there won't be any connection.
Oh boy, and I've interviewed a few flatliners in my day, that's for sure.
Yes.
I sure have. Oh man, I tell you.
Or grandstanders.
Or grandstanders, or you know, oh boy. But usually people in our realm of interest are very highly intelligent and lovely people.
And we don't see, you know, black, white, and I've said to my black people that I interview, is that I'm sorry, I don't see you in your color. I know you want to be seen in your color, but I see you in your heart and soul.
Yeah,
right? Your color is your culture. It just happens to be the skin you're in.
that's
But if I
true.
don't see your heart and soul, I don't care what color you're coming in.
Exactly. I remember my kids are so great. My eldest son, Chris, when he was, I don't know, maybe he was 5 years old, he was really little. And he said he'd been thinking on the couch. He said to me, you know, Mom, the body is really just a costume for the soul.
Perfect. Perfect.
And I said, well, you're not getting that at Catholic schools.
Definitely not. Yeah. Yeah,
But
it is the
really,
soul experience, the
yeah.
spiritual experience. We're here to have this. If we actually decide to merge the human and the spirit together, it is a divine experience, because you are literally the touch, the taste. I have another channel called Central Expressions. Yes, I put sexual shows underneath there, but it's also about the sensuality of life, the
Mm,
touch, the taste, the feeling,
mhm,
opening up all of your senses, truly loving life from every
mhm.
single pore of you, right? And we're so scared to switch those senses on. What will people think? Or what will people say? Or what will this? And we're so scared of other people's judgment, and who gives a shit,
I
really?
know, really, really,
And
really.
if
As
they do
long,
pass judgment of you, goodbye.
yeah, later. So
Yeah,
what? You
yeah.
know, I just am not, I just don't really sweat the small stuff like I
No,
used to.
no,
You know, I feel pretty relieved from that. And I think part of it is, you know, the work that I do
yes.
is so uplifting. And, you know, I'm out. I'm out.
I
You
hear you.
know,
I hear
say
you.
what you want to say,
Yes.
criticize me, you know, whatever you want to do. And I actually, I think skepticism is good.
Mhm.
I think skepticism and a little right brain activity is a great idea,
If it's inquiring.
because if it's inquiring and you know, it is possible, and it's only happened to me maybe twice, but it is possible for someone who is mentally unsound
Mhm.
to, you know, have, you know, fantasized or hallucinated or ideated ET contacts, you know, and sometimes people ask me, you know, how do you know? Well, again, we're talking about heart and soul.
Yes.
A big part of that is intuitive, but I do also, as is proper protocol, treatment protocol, I do a very elaborate intake.
Mm.
I talk to the person usually for at least an hour.
Mm.
And for me, and that's Kathy Martin said the same thing. I like it if somebody has at least a partial memory of
Right.
an experience. So that's kind of something to, and then of course I ask about, people can lie, but I ask them about their mental health history, if they're on any psychotropic medication. And by the time I get done with that, I know if it's okay to see them, because here in Canada, it is against the law, as a certified hypnotherapist, for me to treat anyone who has been diagnosed with a mental illness. That's out of my treatment purview. So it's very important that you know,
Mm.
I would be practicing medicine without a license or some other awful
Right.
thing if I worked on somebody who was mentally ill. But luckily, for some reason, when I was attending university, I put myself through school working in a state mental hospital
Mhm.
back in the day. And I'm talking, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, that kind of
Yes.
type of, you
Yes.
know, I won't go into
Yeah.
detail, but I had a lot of chance to observe and work with people with schizophrenia.
Mm.
They didn't call it then bipolar, you know, you name it. I saw it in action, and I saw a lot of it before we had meds to
Mm.
help manage it. So, I mean, we still had straitjackets and padded rooms. So
Right.
I am able to, uh,
Identify.
I think so. I think
Yeah.
the years of experience and
But
just,
you know, there's another point to it though. Wonderful Christina Hill that we did a show together, channeling ascensions,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and she ended up on the street. She ended up in an institution. She thought she had gone mad. They thought she had gone mad, and really, what it was an entity wanting to speak through her,
mm-hmm,
wanting to use her to be her voice, and eventually
mm-hmm,
she let that person through. And it was never ever a human living being. She's called Athena, and she comes in and she speaks through Christina. But she thought she was going mad, and she was treated as if she was going mad. And, you know, when she allowed her to come through, then her life changed completely, because now she was no longer scared, obviously, but also no longer under that, well, you are this. And I think very often we can look at some people who have quote mental illness and understand that there's really just a conflict with their gift trying to come through. But I also do feel an awful lot of psychics, and I have a show last week on spiritual depression. Right. And a lot of empaths, especially with the war, with any disaster, as much as you like to put white light around you, you feel it. You definitely do feel it. And a lot of empaths do go into a depression. Or a lot of sensitives go into a depression that can be misdiagnosed as well. So, you know, I think there's a fine line there, isn't there?
Yes, all those things can be absolutely misdiagnosed. And many schizophrenics, when they were active, they would be having hallucinations about ETs talking to them.
Right.
And all I can tell you is I think in that environment, I think most of the people that I worked with were profoundly ill.
Right.
But I do absolutely believe that there is misdiagnosis all the time. And, you know, during my, you know, tenure in that work, then, you know, Thorazine came in and everybody was just completely doped up. And so it was impossible to tell anything.
Right,
really.
Exactly.
You know, and they were whacking people up with many more milligrams than were necessary, but they didn't know anything about dosing. So anyway, there you go. But I try to be as careful as possible. I rely on my intuition, and I also put my intention out, you know, to the universe to say, you know, please let the people that need to find me find me.
For the reason that you could serve them.
Yes. And when I put that intention out, if I do a thorough intake, and my instinct says this person really needs your help, it's okay, that's the best I can do. Could I be fooled by someone? Yes, I could be. Has it happened? Only twice in 20 years that I can really put my finger on.
And of course, a lot of people, you know, if it's before diagnosis of bipolar, or, you know, is it stress? Is it this? Is it that? There's so many different layers nowadays, is that they may not know. I mean, how do we tell the difference between somebody who is highly stressed, right? Who could look like they're suffering from bipolar, or look like they're suffering from other things. And when you look at what we, you know, 2.5 years of the pandemic, basically, well, 5 years of TT, you know, and the stress level in North America, around the world,
off the charts.
And so it sparked so much depression and so much kind of mental imbalance that doesn't necessarily have to be a mental disease, but is just a question of they can't cope with things.
Well, isolation is a huge part of it. The quickest way to destabilize people is to isolate them. It had to be done. It was unfortunate, and that isolation. I mean, I have been cleaning up. I am always busy now. But seriously, you're right. Once anxiety is the killer. I'm almost of the belief system that there's just one disease, and it's anxiety.
It causes all the other diseases.
Everything it's almost
all the other problems.
And holding in hatred and anger. You know what that's like. That's like drinking poison and waiting for the other guy to die.
Right.
That's what that's like. You know, so we have been poisoning ourselves with dangerous levels of our own body chemistry. And it is a kind of adrenal poisoning that we go through. And then the converse side of that is we're not making enough serotonin, enough endorphins to cope with, you know, the pressures of these things we've gone through. So the telomeres are being worn away, and it's all stress and anxiety related. So, you know.
And, you know, on the other side of the scale, you've got the indigo kids, and there's a great deal more Asperger's and autism.
Oh,
I had somebody on last week with Asperger's. I've interviewed many of them, and I'm always blown away by their skills. And we look at them as maybe having a disability, and I think they have an ability. They're incredibly focused on what their interest is and what they want to do. Where they're not have the ability is working with society. And, quite honestly, I don't blame them. The society and its dysfunction, throws them off completely. And with the static and the hatred and everything else is going out there, I don't blame them not wanting to be a part of it and staying in their world. But we're seeing incredible amount of creativity coming from them, and a different view of autistic children.
Oh yeah, I mean Greta Thunberg. Greta Thunberg. She is on the Asperger's scale, or she says autistic, and they definitely. I don't think there was ever as much of it. It existed. We didn't recognize it, but there wasn't anything like the amounts of this that we are seeing now, which says that, again, these special souls are coming in. And as you say, they are amazingly creative. I mean, Elon Musk has Asperger's. So
they see things in such a focused way without the outside chatter. I mean, whereas we are so busy will society accept me? They don't give a shit about society. It's just the focus in on what interests them and what they want to get done. And and I think in many ways that they are creators in many ways.
Indeed, and so many musicians, and even actors. It's really quite something. These are very, very special people who are coming in with unique gifts that are what we need now. And interesting, the way they look at problems.
Yes,
they're stripped of emotional pollution.
Yes.
In a sense, and a lot of what we do, if we, is ego driven and based on other people's opinions of us and fear of judgment, and they don't operate with. Some do, I mean, I'm making a blanket statement because, again, we have a massive scale here. But I think that as you said, they're capable of hyper focus, and their brains work very uniquely. It's not just a case of, as the medical community would say, damage to one hemisphere of the brain. I don't think it's quite that simple.
No. In many ways, I envy them, because they can just switch out the static of the world, which can be very hard for other empathic people, because that bombardment of the world is always there.
And it's very tough sometimes. It is.
When my daughter was little, she, so self-assured by day, but at night could not sleep in her room, could not sleep without a light, could only sleep with me in the dark. And I took her to a past life regressionist, and we found out that she'd been abandoned 3 times and always in the dark. And I was able to tell her, and I think she was 4 or 5, I was able to tell her, that isn't you. That was a past you. You're safe. And she started sleeping in her room with the light on, and then the light went off, and she now has a degree in social work and counseling, and very self-assured. So and it's just, sometimes we have these past lives that will dictate the hanging on. And I always say that in this lifetime, you need to make sure you clear up your shit. Any past programming, any problems that you have to deal with them. Otherwise, you're imposing them on the next life. And we carry so much around with us from lifetime to lifetime without realizing it's not even ours to start off with.
Indeed. And people can even, as they can carry even physical scars from things that have happened to them in the past. They can carry physiological illnesses, or it's there's an incredible mind-body connection. And I think that a lot of knowledge actually is stored external to the brain. The brain's a piece of hardware, but we have the Akasha, we have the Akashic records. Everything is stored in a kind of mega computer, in a sense. And so we can access information and bring it with us if we want to. And so it's
so in your past life regression and the regression thing you do, I mean, obviously a lot of past lives must come up. Is it something that they then now have to face and get rid of themselves, or can you help them face it and delete it?
Well, I think I think the whole point of past life regression is to free yourself of whatever has been affecting you and to move ahead with impunity. You know, I think it's always a healing exercise. Now, it can be a different thing for different people. Sometimes people come to me and they say, you know, I have this very distinct memory of blah, and it will be some kind of thing from a certain historical time. And so we may go directly there.
Right.
Once I get them into the theta state, once I get them into the zone, we may travel directly to that life, because it seems if there's that much memory, it's significant. So we will always, if there is some kind of a real firm feeling or a memory, we'll go there first. But what I usually do is I just put out the intention that the lives that person is supposed to have information about will pop up easily. And I try to, if I'm in a session, you know, about 2 hours, it's a long session. Yeah. I try to get to 3 lives. Now, I don't always make it to 3 because it depends on what kind of processor the client is. If they're a very detailed processor and they're processing quickly, they'll tell me all about their environment. It'll be just like talking to you right now, but not everybody's like that. Yeah. Sometimes someone will sit there and I'll see all the REM activity going on, and I'm waiting and waiting, and finally they say, yeah, I'm wearing a blue hat. Or I mean, it's like, it's so if it's like that, we do it. Absolutely. It just can't be with the same kind of speed with someone who is processing really quickly. And then, but invariably, even if the person doesn't always realize it at the time, you know, they'll contact me later and say, now I understand why I was shown that life. I have a lot of, I spend quite a bit of time in what we call aftercare when the session is over, which is about processing the lives and talking about them, and they ask questions, and I send them home with their own little chart to write down their observations, and also I encourage them to do some inspired drawings. So I do everything I can once we know what's doing to relieve whatever the issue was or whatever the trauma was. Sometimes it's a karmic thing where someone is having a terrible time with a abusive partner or something, and they go right to a life where that person is doing the same BS there. Right. And that gives them to say, oh, well, this is the same bit, and I'm not going to live through it again. So now I know what to do. And that's what that person needed to see.
So I'm refer to me, I've had many lifetimes removed, but the last ones were, there was at least 50 lifetimes of a vow of poverty and around 50 or more lifetimes of persecution, right? So cellularly it was removed, and I keep obliterating anything of it, but can residuals still be there? When you know that, you know, the vow of poverty, right? Been there, done that, don't need to do it anymore. Or, you know, the persecution, like I certainly think I've walked away from the persecution in this lifetime. The vow of poverty, though, has still keep following me. Can it still be there in different cellular structure? Or once you recognize it and you've decided it is going to be no more, you can really sever it? Or is it always remnants of it there?
I think most of the time, these things can be completely, you know, exorcised. But as you say, there is a cellular memory. And I can't speak to every, you know, situation. Anything is possible. And I know that, I mean, look, things affect, for instance, talking about the vow of power, I too have been a nun many times. That's what smart women did if they didn't want to be under male tyranny. Right. So I can dig that. I have issues, a lot of issues with not being being worried about being hungry
Mm-hmm.
and not having enough food, wanting to
Right.
see food in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And this is, and I know kind of where it comes from,
Right.
but it's also just a part of me, I guess. And
Right.
so it does continue on, even though I have knowledge of why.
Right.
But look at, say, for instance, I'm going to talk about my grandparents. They were scarred by the Depression.
Mm.
I mean, they had lots of money, but they functioned so bizarrely. They saved every little bit of string. They reused paper towels. They dried them out. I mean, it was like nothing that anyone could imagine in today's culture of disposable goods. And that Depression, they lived like that for so long that it became
Yeah.
a
Pardon. Yeah.
cellular memory.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they knew consciously that the Depression was over, that they could have whatever they wanted to eat, but they wouldn't buy they wouldn't buy baggies.
Right.
So what they would do is they would take a bread wrapper, plastic bread wrapper, and cut it up, and then they use rubber bands to fit on jars and things. So I'd be over there and my grandmother would say, "Oh, dearie, would you put a rubber on that thing?" Rubber band, but I thought
Yes.
I always got a big kick out of that. But I mean, they were scarred
Yes.
by that, and
Yeah. My mum from the war too.
well,
The
yeah,
larder had to be always full.
yeah,
Didn't trust food if it wasn't eaten that day. Didn't trust it the next day in case it went off. And
yeah,
and those scars they are there. And I think it doesn't matter how rational the mind is. You're no longer in there. Right?
yeah,
It's safe now.
yeah.
I think again the cellular trauma, however much you try and release it and be
Hmm.
rational or logical about it, it really does take a hold, doesn't it? And those
I
scars are
think
hard to
so.
manage. Yeah.
They are, and I think in some cases, many of us go through, from what I've heard described to me, many of us go through a kind of a healing period
Mm,
after we arrive in the afterlife, and it's done apparently with crystals and
mm,
energy. And I remember seeing it once on in my own interlife regression, because that's how we learn how to do all the stuff. We work
mm.
on each other. And I remember saying out loud, this is like a hospital, but there's no sadness.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't,
Yeah.
it wasn't processing, because I
Mm,
worked in a lot of hospitals, and
hmm.
it was a hospital, but it didn't feel anything like a hospital.
Yes.
So, but I think there is and also from what I have heard, people who have gone through what we used to call a waning sickness, a long, awful illness, cancer,
Mm,
and it
mm.
took them so long to finally pass. They really need to be healed when they get on the other side. They just don't jump into their etheric
Right.
body and start visiting their
Yeah.
friends, which is why some people are always, why isn't my father coming to see me right now?
Yes.
When did he die?
Right.
Last week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Well, yeah, that is another wonderful woman who helps people have passed on move on. And
mhm,
my mum and dad, there was a lot of animosity when they died. Well, he died when I was 11. She died some 50 or 49 years later.
oh my,
But she still had the resentment. Right. And so
wow.
when she did pass, my friend said, no, they're both at soul school. They have to resolve their problems before they can go anywhere.
Wow. So they had a chance.
Yeah.
They had a chance to resolve.
Mhm.
And they didn't,
Yep.
and they're not going to go into another life. They're not
Yep.
even going to go into the main population
Yep.
until they
Yep.
get their
The
shit
act
sorted
together.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, pardon me.
Yeah. Nope. That's fine.
Colloquialism.
But that's the point, is that do it in
Yeah,
your lifetime. You
do
don't want
it.
to, yeah, you don't want to waste the afterlife in doing that, right? Do it in
No.
this lifetime.
And that's why we're here,
Mm,
because I tell you, experiencing things in the physical body in the third density is faster.
yeah.
People don't have to incarnate, but it
Mm,
takes them longer to facilitate any things they want to work on with
mm,
themselves. This is real, direct, real learning. That's why, one of the reasons why we desire to do it,
mm.
because it is the most intense but the most thorough school.
Yeah. I mean, we sign up to have this experience, this human experience, and we say, you know, give it to me, and we don't always know what we're going to get. But then that's the self-discovery of how we deal with it. You know, do we kind of become the humanoid and step into hate, fear, and loathing, or do we face the challenge and decide to rise up and go through the process of healing and releasing and understand things aren't being done to you, they're being done for you.
Absolutely. And, you know, even it's very tricky, you know, in your life to point a finger at a bad guy, you know, say that person.
3 pointing back at you.
You know, but sometimes, and I had never thought of this, but sometimes evolved souls will volunteer to come in and be the bad guy if a certain lesson has to be learned.
Yeah.
And that is one of the most selfless things that someone can do.
Yeah, I think I've been an executioner somewhere along the line.
Well,
and an assassin.
Yeah, we have had to do all of these life experiences and
to have the whole experience.
To have the whole panorama. We need to be able to have compassion for any other being. And to do that, we have to, learning physically is a very powerful tool.
I mean, we like to pass judgment on assassins, etc., murderers, but there's always the why. Why have they become that? Why are they doing that? And that's kind of the understanding you need to have in that lifetime. Why have I chosen this path? And, you know, I think if we decide to merge the two experiences together, the spiritual and the human experience together, and really merge and be willing to go through everything, you know, the pain, the anguish, the trauma, the joy, the love, the illumination, it really is something that can be quite extraordinary, that you're not going to get on other planes, because it is the physical one, that the mere thing of holding. I have a grandson that's going to be 1 next week. I've just come from him, and I'm going back and just, you know, holding this little boy, just his looks and smiles and giggles and things like that. That kind of human experience cannot be experienced by just the ethereal one. And that is the gift to us as a human. Right?
That is our gift.
Yeah.
Our gift of choice. That perhaps the angels, that phylum, I don't believe they have that choice.
Right.
They're like in the Tolkien stories, like the elves, the first children. They're like the first children, and they are completely spiritual beings, and I don't, and maybe even gender fluid.
Yes.
You know, but
yes, most certainly. I call them the translucent people.
Yeah.
You know, because there's really no body to them. It's just an essence of energy.
Indeed.
You know, of intellectual energy, and it's and that's, I think, kind of when I do go and do my little astral traveling, that's how I feel. I feel weightless. I feel, you know, just completely at home in that space. And, you know, there's been times that can please beam me up, take me away. You know, do I have to come back here? And then you understand why. And then, you know, then you meet people like yourself and other people that I've interviewed here, and you understand why we are still here. We're here to actually open up that door. We're here to switch on that energy, to turn up that volume, to show people it is safe to ascend, to evolve. That, you know, the extraterrestrials aren't out with talons, you know, out to suck up your blood or whatever, you know. You know, that they're more good than bad, and that they're here to help us evolve. And in actual fact, my firm belief is we have to evolve. We have to reach a certain frequency, not only to save our planet, which cannot take this thunderous hate anymore. She's going to split.
Yes.
She needs this elevation of energy and love.
Yes.
The universe needs it for the balance and the equilibrium of our space in the universe, to elevate our energy. And we also, it's like, enough school now already. Will you graduate? And we need to graduate and get up to that higher level, because it's imperative. I feel always an imperativeness that we get up to that higher level, and we need to put the foot on the pedal now.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more. And that's what's happening. I want to tell you a little, sometimes people ask me, well, have you ever done past life regressions that are recent enough where the person's previous existence could be proven? And, you know, the answer to that is yes. It's happened a couple of times where it was such a recent incarnation that there was in fact evidence. Now, there wasn't hard evidence for this one, but here's an example of the transformative power of a past life regression. So a young man came to me, very, very smart guy, high IQ, but also a drug dealer. Okay, that was, now he was using all his money to put himself through school. He was getting a degree in something like international diplomacy or so. Some, you know, he was but he made his money, and he was always involved with girls that were like disreputable, and it was he didn't understand why he kept being attracted to these maybe lower
vibrations, yeah.
you know. And so we went through a couple lives, a couple of ancient lives, a Roman life, and then on the last life we were exploring, he revealed he was an African-American man. This guy in his life here was sort of Middle Eastern, but not white guy. You know, he was a brown guy, you know, but this guy was a black guy. And he was a kind of a hustler criminal on the south side of Chicago. And I know Chicago well enough because my mother's family's from there. And this guy had never even been there. And he's talking about streets that he would have no way of knowing. So that was interesting to me. So he saw his apartment, he described it, and then I said, well, now go to where you work or whatever. And he owned a nightclub, a really disreputable jazz joint in the south side of Chicago, and he was running prostitutes and all this stuff. And then, you know, we go through all, then at the end I take the individual to the death experience. And I said, now, you know, you're not going to feel any pain, just, you know, I set it up like I do. And he said that he was just standing on the street in front of his apartment, and someone that he didn't even see came by and shot him in the back of the head, like execution style. And he was out of his body. Now, that life was his most recent life and ended probably in the 30s or the late 20s. And after seeing that and seeing that pattern and how terribly that life ended, and feeling that person, how they didn't have a wife or children or family, and living in that kind of cesspool of poverty, it affected him so much to retrieve those memories. This guy gave up what he was doing for a living. He finished his degree, met a lovely girl, and moved to Vancouver, where he got an excellent job in his area of expertise.
Yeah.
So it was a complete transformation. And this guy was not a kid. He was 30.
Right.
He was 30-ish.
So I mean, there's case in point of what I was saying before, how much of our past life is with us in this life, and we're doing things and we're drawn to things, or we're worried about things that we know why. I mean, I remember meeting a woman, because I'm a reader, and I was reading for her, and I said, you're in the wrong body. She was this tiny little person in who she is, but she was in this big bloated body, and nobody could ever understand why she was always bloated, why she was this. And it's like, you're in the wrong body. That's quintessentially what it is. And it's and she was trapped there, and I sent her to someone else who could help her because he had far more expertise on that. But that's the trouble, isn't it? Sometimes we have these past lives that are still so imprinted.
Oh, some of them can be very, they can be very, and you know, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a recent one that's imprinted. Right. You know, a story I often tell, I had a lovely lady that was coming to see me, and she was from India. She was just lovely. And she had been, diagnosed with fibromyalgia, like extreme fibromyalgia. I mean, she couldn't walk. She was in agony. There were things with her arms. She couldn't sleep. So I tried and I work in pain management. I did everything that I could do in a straight ahead way to resolve this, and it wasn't happening. So I suggested a past life regression. Being as that was part of her belief system, she said, great. I actually went over to her house, I remember, because she had trouble with mobility. So we went through a couple of lifetimes, and finally we got, way back there, and she described a life where she was a not just a servant, but like an untouchable. If you're talking about the old caste system, well, I think it still exists, but she was an
Yes.
untouchable, like a slave, and working for a big, huge home, of wealthy, Rajas and people. So it was like that. And her job when she got older, her job was she had to go to the water pump. They had a water pump, and she would have to pump water for the house all day long.
Wow.
And when she finally died, and what she remembered that was so horrible, she remembered herself dying, and she from exhaustion, from overwork, and she was in a kind of a hut, and nobody was with her. She was completely alone. And there was a kind of a guard or somebody that worked at the estate standing outside the door, but not looking at her, just waiting there for her to die. And it was so lonely and so sad and so painful. She had carried that
Right.
into
She
her
was
present
a
life.
disposable human being.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And indeed, and we estimated that this was, if there was a pump, a handheld pump, it could have been the 1600s
Yes.
easily.
Yeah.
And we went into, she recalled an awful lot of detail. And when I brought her out, I won't say the pain was completely gone, but it was so manageable that she never had any more mobility problems or sleeping problems. It was almost a complete cure. I think whatever was left was actual arthritis from this
Right.
life, because
Yes.
she was an older lady.
Yeah.
So that was incredibly edifying and spectacular. But it was the loneliness and the
Yes.
being a nothing
Yes.
and no human contact.
No.
And that was
Just
what
a
she
robot.
brought back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we all want to belong. We all want to
Mm-hmm.
count, and to be
Mm-hmm.
countless. Is one of, I think, our souls, because our soul needs a connection, and that really is something that we all need to have in our existence in any plane. Do you? I noticed that an awful lot of us empathic people have some sort of physical ailments.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have fibro. And a lot of people do. Is that because we're carrying a past life, or do you think because we're carrying the burden, or do you think it's a defense? I know that in a lot of ways, my energy was just too out there for people, and
Mm-hmm.
it kind of felt that I was given it to dampen my energy down. But have you come across a lot of people that are more of the higher vibrational people, but they do carry illness?
Um, that's a very interesting question, but I'm going to have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that for sensitives who are women, it is more common.
Yeah.
I don't hear a lot of men who do that work talking
Right.
about back pain and fibromyalgia. I don't hear that as much from men, but I almost think that in some ways when we work with people or are around people,
Mm-hmm.
and being empathic, we take a lot of stuff on and in, and
Yes.
I think we carry a lot of
Yeah.
stuff that comes ultimately from other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I work with um, individuals like that who are sensitive, even, and a lot of times they don't even think of themselves that way. I'm just telling you, I know what the deal is, because I can go right into their brain and pick up their thoughts, it's so easy. So obviously these people have a big ray of compassion, and they're taking on a lot of stuff. And so I also think that we are much more, as sensitives, we are much more in touch with our bodies. you would be surprised at how many people are just completely oblivious, and they'll come in and they'll say, well, I don't feel so well. I don't know. I think it's my leg. I'm not sure. Did you injure your leg? No. Did you injure anything? Well, I hurt my lower back. Does your lower back hurt? I don't know. I mean, it's this is the kind of thing
Yeah.
that many people who are not in tune with themselves are not as in touch with their bodies.
Yeah.
Now, what I would do if we were working together and you were having an issue with this is I would directly talk to your nervous system and start shutting down the talk between
The
your
sensitives. Yeah,
between your
yeah.
nerve and the talk between your nerves and your brain.
Right.
I would start, disrupting the sequence of pain, because if you have pain for a certain length of time, the same kind of pain, it actually forms kind of like a circuit.
Yes.
So, it's important. What I do, what I was taught to do through various techniques, is I go in there and I disrupt that circuit of pain. And by doing that kind of thing, people can also begin to feel quite a bit of relief.
So again, it becomes a pattern.
Yeah, it does. Yes, it is a pattern. We as souls, we are very obsessed with patterns. I think.
Can I have a good pattern, please?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't want one of those simplicity patterns where I come out wearing
No.
a box.
No, can you upgrade me? Yeah, exactly. I want the deluxe model, please. Now let us talk about your book, because we've talked about everything, but let's talk about the book. What is in this wonderful book?
Well, I think firstly, my book is called Intersections, A True Story of Extraterrestrial Contact. And it is about the experience that I had with one specific individual who began coming to see me rather early in my career as a hypnotherapist, 15 years ago, more maybe. And I had a chance to document this individual's amazing evolution, if you will, coming from being a completely terrified insomniac who was unable to look anyone in the eye to a really happy, functional, secure person. And so the gentleman who is the subject of the book, Wes Roberts, is a lifelong experiencer and someone who was on another planetary system and planned to come here and has maintained contact with the beings from what he considers to be his home planet.
Right.
So it's fascinating detail. It doesn't have really much to do with the secret space program, any of that kind of stuff. It's a really sort of a pure thing. These beings are evolved. He does go through some really weird and scary stuff. And I included in the book an awful lot of transcriptions of the session. So I think what the reader will enjoy is it's really like being in the session. I have never seen so much descriptive material about what happens during the session itself in really any books about this subject matter. So that's what I hope to offer. And there's some drawings in there, and it's a real intimate look into this individual's experience.
And by going through that, reading that, some people may have a connection, a relativity of like a similar experience, or not to be afraid, or hey, watch your vibration so that doesn't happen. The more and more we talk about it, the more and more we have reading about it, the more and more it becomes mainstream, the less fearful we become of it. But it's also to understand that this kind of interdimensional travel is a wonderful thing. Is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And so informative, and it can really elevate us on so many levels.
Indeed.
One of the things I've noticed I've always carried with me is sadness. And it's always like, it doesn't matter who I know, I'm always alone. Right? That just seems to have been a pattern that's always through there. And it's because I don't know the name of my planet, but I've never had any interaction with it, and I would love to go back and have that interaction. And it's became aware of that sadness that I was meant to go through this life as an igniter and move
Yeah.
on. No, I've just switched people on. Now they need to go to the other people that can help them. And that's all I do, switch people on, and off
You're an
I go.
igniter, and
Igniter, yeah.
you're feeling a bit homesick.
Yes,
And
yes.
you could absolutely, in a meditative state with proper protection, you could simply put that intention out there. Please, I need to speak to someone, one of my own kind.
Yes.
Any way that is comfortable for you to phrase it.
Yes.
And so the whole we live in a multiverse.
Yes,
as
we do.
above
Yes.
as above, so below, and we can travel anywhere. We can travel anywhere in time. All of us travel, even the people who don't accept that there's
Right.
even a soul. In their dreams, they're often traveling.
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure you know this, but the pineal gland, which releases melatonin, which helps us sleep, also releases DMT, which we need to dream. Now, DMT is a door opener. I believe that it's part of what we make it, so it's part of what's required for interdimensional travel, I believe.
And mine is so detailed. I can wake up exhausted from the traveling.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I bet.
Yes. I mean, I'm so detailed down to the color, the buttons, the this, the that, everything. And it's like being in a movie or directing a movie or writing a movie. It's so utterly. And very often I would talk about an experience and realize, oh, no, I didn't have that in this lifetime, or I didn't have that here. This was had somewhere else. And I'd love to go back there, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah. Well, you can
keep it in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a certain beach I want to go back to. It was just absolutely sublime. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing,
Wonderful.
isn't it? Is if we're willing to be open and get out of our own way, get out of our own fear, get out of our own ego, get out of our own ignorance, and just be willing to experience. And yes, it's going to be strange. No, it's not going to be like living day to day, but that's the beauty of it. If you're willing to explore and open up and let it see where it takes you, allow it to take you, the information that comes back. And, when we ask for knowledge, it doesn't come through like a manual, right? It comes through as a feeling. And that feeling then can be transcribed in any which way it's meant to be to relate that knowledge. Sometimes it's through a musician, or through an artist, or through the writer, or through the spokesperson. Whatever your particular instrument is, that knowledge will come through that instrument, and it will then speak to whom is all ready to hear it.
Indeed. I agree. And those that are ready to hear it will be attracted to it, because
Exactly.
the law of attraction is a real thing. Like vibrations will move towards each other.
Right.
And that's how she goes.
Yes.
So if my book Intersections is available on Amazon.com, Amazon.ca, wherever you Amazon. And actually the Wes Roberts has now written his own book, which is called An Experiencer's Garden, also available on Amazon. And that I wrote the little forward, and I think it was what an amazing thing for him to do after our work together, to feel so empowered to actually write a book and come out, and there he goes. So I'm thrilled. I couldn't be more thrilled.
Yes. And of course, share your site, share your YouTube, your Twitter, and how people can get hold of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, my website is lightworkhypnosis.com. It's having a wee bit of a facelift now. Now, I should be having a facelift myself, but I decided it would be better to spend the money on the website.
Yes, I agree. Doesn't matter. The human body goes south. We just
going anywhere.
There's more of us to love. Yeah.
I'm just putting off the inevitable. Anyway, so lightworkhypnosis.com, and you can always reach me me on Facebook through either Lesley Mitchell Clarke or Lightwork Hypnosis. And I would love it if you would email me. I do my very best to answer all emails, and that could be just a question or a, you know, it doesn't have to be a big deal. If you just like to reach out, you can always get me by email at Lesley, Lesley, at lightworkhypnosis.com.
lightworkhypnosis.com.
That's it.
And you know, it's, don't be afraid to find out, is it a past life? Is it an entity? What is it that's holding you back or that's nagging at you that you can't quite bring to the forefront? You know, maybe it isn't a past life that will come through, but maybe it is that extraterrestrial being that you are. You know, as I said, the human body is Sarah, but my spiritual body isn't. It's a totally different entity. And maybe that entity will come through and reveal itself. And then you'll feel more at one with self. All right. Because you know now you're whole. You're not kind of walking around as split. And believe me, being split is not a nice thing to be.
No.
So when you can merge the two together and work together, that really is a divine experience. So don't be afraid of it, and don't be afraid of all the ET stuff going on. You know, soon in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be mainstream, right? There is a shakeup coming for the world. It's going to be environmental. It's going to be economical. It's also going to be a totally restructuring of government. We're going to see a massive shakeup, and it's going to be quite traumatic. You know, we think we had it with the pandemic. No. There is more to come, but it is shaking out all the dead stuff and allowing us to step into that light, you know, of truth and love. And the more we're willing to go on that path and raise our frequency, the more we will be not only part of the solution, but the more that we will really enjoy the outcome of it.
We will indeed, and we'll be able to be accepted by our brothers and sisters in our neighborhood.
Yes.
And we can eliminate poverty, we can eliminate sickness, we can eliminate isolation. Everything is possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It all goes down to that willingness. How willing are you to realize there is no box? How willing are you to realize you're working on an old, outdated program? How willing are you to delete the programming and insert wonderment? A new program called Wonderment, Exploration, a willingness to understand, a willingness to learn, and allow that to grow and be what it's meant to be. Because the more of us that step into that, the quicker we're going to turn this tide, which we are desperately needing to turn.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well said. Well spoke, Sarah. Well spoke.
Thank you so much for being here. It's been absolutely fabulous. I've enjoyed
Sarah,
every minute of it.
It has been my extreme pleasure not just to chat with you and meet you, and I'm sure we'll get together again before too long. And you take care. I'm sending all kinds of white light your way.
So remember, folks, lightworkhypnosis.com. She's got a YouTube, Contact TV, Twitter, Lightwork Hypnosis, and Lesley at lightworkhypnosis.com. Reach out to her. Just, you know, you could just have this nagging thing. Oh, no, I can't do that. And the voice at the back of your head says, yes, you need to do it. Just reach out. Remember, she will talk to you first to see if she can help you, if there is something that she can do for you. It's not just to jump in. And, you know, that will put you at ease. And then when you really do find out what really is holding you back, it will be something that you can deal with so you can propel forward. So don't be afraid. You know you don't like where you are right now.
Yeah.
And here is a solution for you that can help you deal with it and move forward, because that's what we're meant to be. Fluid creatures, constantly moving. Energy doesn't like to be stagnant.
That's right. So true. All right, my dear. Well, I'm gonna run. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Until next time, folks.
And a very happy St. Patrick's Day.
All right. Yes, that was last week. Yes. Bye for now, folks. See you. We hope that you enjoyed the show right here on selfdiscoverymedia.com. Please tune in to our selfdiscoverymedia.com/shows and you will see all the other genres that we have from you. Every week on Tuesday, we bring you new shows from illuminating people. If you know someone that should be interviewed, please contact us at info@selfdiscoverymedia.com. Now stay tuned for your next show.